Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Kelly from Discovery Health. Welcome and thank you for joining me tonight. We are talking about healing a leaky gut. So I'm going to show you some of my tips. I'm going to tell you what it means to have a leaky gut. And I know a lot of you are interested in this because I get questions about it all the time. So let's start. Dr. Kelly's guide to heal a leaky gut. But what is a leaky gut? That's a catchphrase for us, really. Leaky gut. It means intestinal permeability. What is permeability? It's when things get through where maybe they're not supposed to actually be getting through. If you take a look at this picture here, it's a very rough drawing, so take it with a grain of salt. But this red area is the bloodstream. And these are goblet cells, or part of the intestinal lining that protects you and that is responsible for keeping the bad stuff out and letting the nutrition go in. So when we talk about leaky gut, we're specifically talking about these tight junctions that are in between each one of these cells. Do you see how close they are to each other? But over here, we have gaps. There's big areas in between each one of these cells. What that allows to do is to let bacteria get into the bloodstream, let viruses get into the bloodstream, let pieces of food, partially digested proteins of food get into the bloodstream when they're not supposed to be there. So the gut lining has now become permeable, where really your gut protects your body just like your skin does. It doesn't allow the outside world to get into the bloodstream. But when you have a leaky gut, things are getting into the bloodstream when they're not supposed to. So how do you know if you have a leaky gut? What are the causes of a leaky gut? Let's talk about it. Causes of a leaky gut. Inflammation. We talk about inflammation all the time, and we're going to talk more about it today as well. Infections. We've been talking a little bit about yeast and candida. We're going to talk about that again, as well as other infections. We have to talk about gluten. Even if you think gluten isn't bothering you and you're not allergic to it, you have to understand what actually happens in your body. Your body has a very difficult time digesting gluten. You know, the question always comes up now, why are so many people allergic to gluten or intolerant to gluten when 50 years ago they weren't? Well, think about how much our farming industry has changed. Think about all of the pesticides, all of the chemicals, all of the genetic modifications that start in the seed, so that we can have stronger crops so it can grow in any condition. Don't you think that passes along to us? It changes the gluten concentration and the gluten strength in those products when you're eating it. And gluten was difficult for our body to digest in the first place. Okay, we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. And then the other thing you have to think about, 4 top causes. This does not mean that it's the only things that cause a leaky gut, but when I am thinking about a leaky gut with a person, figuring out their triggers, what's going wrong, why do we have to work on the gut, these are the areas that we need to focus on. Stress. I mean, how many of you have had that gut feeling? You knew something wasn't right, something felt a little off. Where do you think that saying came from? Your gut is an indicator. It tells you something. If you're worrying, if you're stressed out, if you've been in a traumatic incident or in an accident, your gut takes a hit. It gets inflamed. It causes a leaky gut. All of that stress that's in your gut causes you a problem. All right, so we need to deal with inflammation, the infection, gluten, as well as this stress if we want to heal a leaky gut. So how do we get inflammation in our gut? Well, if you're eating bad, okay, you're eating the drive-through, you're eating food that doesn't break down very well, doesn't get moldy, You know, think about all of those products that are so fast food, so processed, they never really break down. They don't attract insects, they don't get moldy. If your food doesn't get moldy after sitting on the counter for a week or even in the refrigerator for a week, I question if it was really food. And you should be questioning that too, okay? So inflammatory foods, junk food, processed food, inflammatory foods like gluten, dairy, corn, and soy, all of that causes inflammation in your GI tract because your GI tract's the first system that has to deal with it, all right? Then we have those food allergies. So many of you want to get tested for food allergies, and you should, because some of those are contributing to inflammation. Some of those food allergens have been created because you have a leaky gut and a partially digested piece of a protein of a carrot leaked into the bloodstream when it wasn't supposed to be there, and it triggered your immune system to flag that carrot to say, ooh, I think that's a bad guy because he looks like a bacteria or a virus. So some of those food allergens are created, but it doesn't matter. When you're dealing with inflammation, whatever your body says is making it inflamed, you have to get rid of it. You have to stop eating it. So stop eating horribly. Stop eating your food allergens. Alcohol is going to make you inflamed. Sugar is going to make you inflamed. And then what do you get diagnosed with when you have tons of inflammation in there? IBS. Very common when you've been to the doctor, you've had a scan, you've been scoped, they didn't find anything wrong. So you must have IBS. It's just an irritable bowel. It goes fast sometimes, it goes slow sometimes, and it's just finicky. No, it's really what you're putting into your body. It's inflammation, and you're in control of that. We can change that. Infections. It's more than just candida, but yeast and candida, which thrive on sugar and alcohol and carbs, okay? If you're eating a lot of sugar, alcohol, and carbs, you're feeding the yeast beast. What's one of the first things we need to do to get rid of yeast? Starve the beast, guys. Bacterial imbalances we can have. So I see it all the time. Somebody has a lot of bacteria, a lot of good bacteria, but they only have one or two of the necessary strains. We are more bacteria than we are human cells. We have more bacterial cells that help us thrive, that help us do bodily functions than we actually do with human cells. Isn't that crazy? We need a lot of that good bacteria, and most of them are in your intestines. So we need to have a balance of all of those good things, because when we don't, then things like yeast and viruses and parasites can get way out of control. So there's many different types of bacteria that can cause an infection in your gut. Viruses, I mean, who's had a stomach flu or a stomach virus, and then you're throwing up and you've got diarrhea, your body's trying to get rid of it, right? Well, sometimes we can get a virus in there and it doesn't have that huge effect of vomiting and diarrhea, but we have some nausea, I kind of don't feel that great, and it's creating a lot of inflammation and it's causing you to have an infection in there. Same thing with parasites. Now, these are not great big long parasites that I'm talking about here. These are microscopic parasites. Guess where they come from? Your food. We have parasites on our food all the time. And when your GI tract is in good shape and there's lots of acid in your stomach, it wipes out the parasites and they don't cause us a problem. But when we have an imbalance, when we have low stomach acid, when we have tons of stress, it gives the parasite an opportunity to keep on living in that GI tract. Moist, dark, and they love it. All right, gluten. Here's the thing with gluten. Now, we could do a whole night talk just on gluten, but this is what I want you to start to think about actually. This word right here, zonulin. You can go ahead and look it up, Google it, and you'll get a much better understanding about what I'm talking about, but it's key here. Even if you're not allergic to gluten, even if you don't think gluten causes you to feel bloated or give you diarrhea or indigestion, which it does cause that for a lot of people, and it does cause a lot of inflammation in their body. Gluten triggers zonulin, and zonulin opens those tight junctions. So right above me here, remember how close these cells are, these tight junctions, and then what happens over here? So these tight junctions that don't allow anything too big to get into the bloodstream and only allow after you've digested all of your food and the nutrients to get absorbed into the bloodstream. Well, now you've eaten gluten and it's causing some inflammation. The body triggers zonulin. Zonulin's job, open up the tight junctions because we need to flood that system with water to dilute the gluten so we can try to break it down, try to digest it, which is still very difficult, but the body treats it like a toxin. So it purposefully triggers this response to open the tight junctions because water needs to flood the system to help you digest the gluten. So again, even if you don't think you have a gluten problem, it opens up the tight junctions. What does that leave you at risk for? Letting in bacteria, letting in viruses, letting in partially digested pieces of food that create food allergies. So now you've got this whole vicious circle. You're eating gluten because it doesn't bother me, but it's still doing this physiological response in your body that can create other problems as well. So if you haven't given up gluten, I really encourage you to do that. Okay. What else do we need to talk about? I know each one of you want me to tell you everything that you need to do, right? Because those are the questions that I get all the time. What should I do for this? What should I do for that? That's why I do these videos. Thank you so much for following. If you haven't already put me on the top of your list and say you want to follow me every time I do a video, every time that I do a live, you get a little notification that I'm on. You can do that, and please do that, and please share my videos on your page as well so that I can reach other people and they need to hear this information too. So I am going to tell you about some of my favorite products, but again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There can be other reasons that people get a leaky gut. There can be other things to do, and this is by no means a complete list. There are many, many, many other things that you can do. I'm just telling you some of the top things that I like to do that make a big difference in a person's gut, but each individual is going to have a different plan for them depending what's going on with them. And some of these things you can do on your own, but when that's not enough, then you know it's time to reach out, get help from somebody like me so that we can really figure out the problem and get you over it to get you on your road to health. So what do we need to do? We need to reduce the inflammation. We have to treat that infection. And that's the one thing I'm not going to go through right now because it's completely dependent what the infection is, what type of bacteria it is, if it's a virus, if it's yeast. There's many herbal things that we can do. There are many medications that we can do. And that's going to be specific to the person and to the specific infection. But we have to find out what that infection is. There's no way to guess at that. So stool testing is one of the best ways to figure out what kind of infection you have in your gut. We need to restore the balance of good and bad bacteria, getting rid of those infections, of making sure you've got enough enzymes and enough acid and things like that. We need to re-inoculate the good bacteria, replenish the good bacteria. We want a lot of good bacteria in there so that we can keep everything else in check, keep those bad things at bay. And then we also need to repair it. Okay, we need to stop triggering the leaky gut to happen. We need to close some of those gaps. And that actually just made me think of something else that I want to write down that I use all the time to do just that. Collagen, along with bone broth, are both very good things to help soothe some of that inflammation and calm it. But the collagen that I often recommend from Great Lakes, which is a grass-fed beef where they get their collagen from, can kind of help to fill these gaps while you're working from the inside out to heal that leaky gut. But first you have to stop triggering it. You have to stop making it so mad at you, which means you've got to change your food. You've got to get your food allergies tested. If it seems like you might have an infection, we need to test you for an infection as well. So those types of things that need to be done. But what's on the top of my list that we talk about all the time? We just talked about these things on Monday when we were talking about one of the health challenges that I've been giving you for January of 2018, which is to make sure that you go to the bathroom every day. That's why I decided to do this talk tonight, because if you're not going every day, if the bowels aren't moving, do you think we're going to get rid of that infection? Do you think we're going to be able to replenish all of the good bacteria? Do you think we're going to get all the bad stuff out of the GI tract if you can't poop? No, we're not. You have to get the bowels going. It's the garbage, and the garbage needs to be taken out every single day. Aloe vera juice, calming, cool, and soothing to this GI tract that's all irritated and inflamed. Let's calm it down. We need something to help calm it down while you change your foods, while you start eating more fruits and vegetables, while you cut out the processed foods, while you cut out the gluten, while you cut out the dairy, all those things that are making you probably have the symptoms that you have. We need to also work to just calm it down while you're working on those other things. The natural calm, magnesium citrate, pulls water into the bowels so you can take the garbage out easily every single day. Therabiotic by Clear Labs is a wonderful, very strong probiotic. There are so many different probiotics out there, and when your gut is in bad shape, you need to start with something really strong and really good, because we are driving out the bad things and we're re-inoculating. We're putting in 100 billion CFU, colony forming units, back into your gut, and Clear Labs makes a fabulous product to be able to do just that. Okay, so take a look at whatever your probiotic is right now. You want to make sure that it's alive, so they're typically kept in the refrigerator. If they're heated, all of the good bacteria will actually die, and if it's dead bacteria you're putting in, it's not doing you any good. We want to have a multitude of different strains so that we can re-inoculate you well. Digestive enzymes and betaine hydrochloric acid. Why are those on there? Well, we're talking about restoring balance and for the GI tract to function normally. So that's what you have to remember. That's why myself, as a doctor of nursing practice, as a holistic health nurse practitioner, work differently, because I'm going to test you functionally. I'm going to know how your body works, and we need to restore the function in your body. That's how I get people better. That's how people get healthy again. And a lot of it is in your control. I just need to guide you and give you the tools to get you through the process so you can get healthy again. But restoring that balance through digestive enzymes. The enzymes help you break down your food better, help you digest it better. We need help doing that when the gut is so inflamed because it's not doing a good enough job on its own. For all of you that have had your gallbladder removed, you will always need a little bit of help. That gallbladder had a specific job for the contents that are going from your stomach into the small intestines. Its job was to secrete bile and bile acids to help break that down. Now, the liver is still making that, but it's not ejecting it with that in a pulsatile format with that food that is going past it. It's just secreting it whenever, so you're missing that piece. Digestive enzymes will help you with that a little bit. And then betaine hydrochloric acid. All of you with thyroid disease, all of you who have or do take Tums or Rolaids or Zantac or Pepcid or Omeprazole or Protonix, what do those things do for you? They lower your acid content. Now that may be helping with a reflux symptom. It doesn't stop you from refluxing. Getting everything going in the right direction, getting the bowels moving, is what stops it from going in the wrong direction. And your gut Your stomach needs to have enough acid to trigger the gallbladder and the liver and to trigger the next opening into the small intestines, because it needs to be very acidic at that point. The acid kills viruses and bacteria and parasites. You're taking those medications all the time, you have no acid, you've got extra bacteria, viruses, and parasites in your GI tract. What good is that doing you? We've got to get you back to normal, and normal means the stomach has an acid level of 1. Okay, so stop suppressing the acid level. Betaine is one way to restore it. Chamomile and marshmallow root are 2 herbs that help with healing and repair of the GI tract. Chamomile helps these goblet cells to produce more mucus. And if you think of the GI tract, it's supposed to be wet and slimy. That's what keeps it healthy. So chamomile helps you to produce more of that mucus to coat the lining of the GI tract so that it can heal and repair and get rid of that inflammation and prevent infection. L-glutamine is an amino acid that your gut loves. It helps to repair the lining. It helps to make it healthy again. So L-glutamine is fantastic. And then I talked about collagen and bone broth already. So this has been a whirlwind. This is just hitting the highlights, but these are some things that you need to start to think about. What's going on in your gut, what you can change of what you're putting in, how to calm down some inflammation, how to combat some things that are going on. But if it doesn't seem like quite enough, you know how to reach me. We'll get you tested properly, and then we'll get those things treated, figured out, and start repairing and healing the gut. So I want to thank you for watching the video. I very much appreciate that. Don't forget to share it. I'm always here to answer questions, especially during the video. I like to be able to answer your questions live. And when I pre-record a video, I'm going to be online and answering them by typing to answer your questions right away. So please give me feedback. Please always give me a lot of likes, a lot of shares, and ask your questions. That's what this is all about, so that we can get you healthy. You've got to embrace the change, and you are going to discover your health. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.